My name is Leslie Antos, and I want to welcome everyone here, and I want to thank you for joining us today. If you can start sharing the slideshow, that would be great. Okay, so the position that I hold within League of Women Voters is secretary, and along with Sue Marsh, our vice president, and Ann Parvin, who is the chair this year of the nominating committee, I'll be facilitating this meeting to present a picture of the current state of our chapter and where we believe all of us would like to see the chapter move in the future. We'll be using about 10 slides, so there's not going to be very much PowerPoint involved today, but we wanted to use them to give you an overview of where we are now and where we want to go. And we do want to have ample time at the end for questions and suggestions and comments. So before we begin going into some of these details, I'd like to remind everyone to please mute their microphones just during this first presentation part of the meeting at least. And any questions that you have can be put into the chat because we'll use that first when we move into the Q&A portion of the meeting. Joanne, could you advance the slide for me? So as the board and the nominating committee started to look at filling board and other key positions according to our usual procedures, one of the things we ourselves first neglected was to evaluate the chapter's strengths and assets before we started assessing the gaps. Once we did this, we realized that we are operating from a position of considerable strength and a record of great success. So the League of Women Voters of the Lower Cape Fear is making a tangible difference in this community. And we wanted to share that with all of you as a way to kick off these discussions, because I think it helps us to have a more accurate perspective of where we are. So in terms of membership, we are in very good position. At the end of January 2020, we had 118 active members in the League of Women Voters of the Lower Cape Fear. And at the end of January 2022, we have 133. So obviously some of the names on the roster list have changed over time, but we have an overall gain with strong interest in the chapter in both New Hanover and Brunswick counties, and notable student participation at UNCW. And much of that is thanks to the work of Marla Barthen, one of our co-presidents. So as opposed to many other volunteer organizations over the past 2 years, we've actually seen our numbers increase. Financially, we have a good story as well. Our account balance in 2016 was $2,447. At the end of 2021, we have $11,198. So it's been a 5-fold increase in terms of what we have in savings and useful income to us in the bank. Community partnerships. We have long-standing relationships with and strong collaborations with groups in the community like the YWCA, the Girl Scouts, NAACP, the New Hanover County Resiliency Task Force, Smart Start, the Coastal Federation, Cape Fear River Watch, the Harrelson Center, the North Carolina Justice Center, the New Hanover County Commission for Women, UNCW, especially strengthened in the last 12 to 18 months, and more. In voter services, I think this is one of the places where the League of Women Voters is most recognizable. Our Vote for One website is an active and established resource for locally specific information. This past fall, just at the Harrelson Center in New Hanover County, we had 15 voter registration days. In Brunswick County, associated with the same election cycle, we sponsored 5 candidate forums. So very active in the voter services area. In terms of our action teams, many of you are familiar with the action teams, you're on the action teams. Just to highlight some of the achievements, the Education Action Team, as many of you know, published a study of the North Carolina voucher program that has been cited by news organizations such as Bloomberg News and the Orlando Sentinel. They pivoted during the pandemic timeframe to advocate that COVID relief funding be used to support school reopening and childcare for working families. That was not previously on their focal list of focus, but they made that happen as a result of what was happening with the pandemic. Members of the Education Action Team hold leadership positions within the pre-K community, with members on the New Hanover County Head Start policy and North Carolina pre-K advisory councils. The Environmental Action Team has taken a visible role in the consortium of environmental and business organizations opposed to development of Cedar Point on the west bank of the Cape Fear River. They've had representation from the League on the Wilmington Mayor's Clean Energy Task Force, and they've collaborated with community partners to address the PFAS contamination in the Cape Fear River and our water supplies. The Fair Elections Action Team has advocated unceasingly for nonpartisan redistricting process in North Carolina, has informed the public on how to vote using absentee ballots, developing messages that are specifically targeted to different demographic groups, and was recognized by the US Census Bureau for its work on the 2020 census, even though that was very constrained activities because of the pandemic. The Women's Issues Action Team works with partner groups to advocate for passage of Medicaid expansion in North Carolina and single-payer healthcare in the United States, and has been one of the local forces behind ratification of the ERA in North Carolina and at the federal level. So just when we look at what assets and resources we have available to us within our chapter, the action teams are one of the biggest in terms of what we're able to do and what we can focus on. And lastly, in terms of communication, we have channels for reaching our members and the public that are well established and professional, successful at informing and spawning action. We have hot topics meetings that have moved from in-person to Zoom and have strong attendance. We regularly get between 60 and over 100 people attending our hot topics meetings, and almost always include media and local government leaders in the audience. So to summarize, we are a well-organized, mature, and resource-rich organization that has every intent of continuing to be as successful and productive as we have been in the past. Across the country, members of the League of Women Voters work together to make a difference in their communities, as we have been doing here in the Lower Cape Fear. We've called this meeting of the membership because the biggest obstacles to achieving our goals lie in staffing. And that's what Sue and Ann are going to talk about. So I'm going to turn it over to Sue Marsh at this point.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Leslie. I thank you all for coming. As Leslie has just said, we have a very robust league, and we hope to continue in this vein. We are, however, in need of your help. We have too few hands to do too many things. So the purpose of this meeting is to inform you of the present status of the board and to describe what we see for 2023. We hope that by the end of the meeting, you will have asked yourself what you can do and how you can become involved in the leadership of our group. Next slide. To give you an idea of where we are today, this slide shows you the current openings. Those are in blue. The positions that will be coming open in June, they're in red, and those that will continue are in black. As you can see, there are a lot of names and positions in the red and the blue. Next slide. This year has been a tough year, both physically and health-wise, along with just an aging population and COVID. We didn't expect to have so many positions to be left unfilled. but this is where we are. We will have 3 remaining board members for 2022-23. The positions that are most critical are president and vice president. We have suffered with the loss of Gail Bromley, who moved to California. The positions we have, despite shout outs in essentials and to the fair elections team, all of these positions that have come open this year has remained unfilled. Many of our strongest leaders have had to step away from leadership roles due to health issues, family issues, and we need to replace them. So if you can please step forward to help us finish this year and plan for next. Next slide. As I said earlier, we can really use your help in the positions that are currently open. As much as the league has done this year, we could have done so much more despite having to do everything through Zoom. Bonnie will be stepping down as treasurer in June, and we would like to have her position filled now rather than waiting until then to sort of shadow Bonnie, who has offered to train and help the next person move easily into a new spot. The same is true as for the coordinator of Vote 411. The primaries are scheduled for May, so we need someone to take over, and we need to have someone in place before the primaries start. We will provide all the training you need. Chris has agreed to train, and there is formal training that comes from state. For board level positions, the board meets once a month, and these days is via Zoom. If you've never served on a board, it's not difficult. And as a newcomer, you'll be welcomed into the fold. You'll not feel like an outsider. The dynamics on a board every year where there are changes change with new personalities that come in. We're always needing new ideas, new ways of looking at things, and fresh blood does that. As you see here, we will have a vacancy for president starting in June, and this happens every year. The presidency is a one-year term, and our succession planning processes have dealt with this in the past by asking the first vice president, as he or she comes into office, to be willing to stay on and move up to president. So it's a year in training for the first vice president. Ideally, we will have identified people interested in the president and the first vice president position by the 1st of June. These positions are important, and the board functions as a team. So there's plenty of support, and we get the support from both the board, AT leaders, and many others. Anyone volunteering for these positions will become a part of the team and will have orientation and training. It's always hoped that some members in positions will stay on from year to year because of the very nature of the positions. For example, treasurer, we like to have the treasurer to stay a year after year, though it's not mandatory. That also goes for the heads of the action teams, head of communications, and Vote 411. Positions are always renewable. If you come on the board and you love it and you don't want to leave, then we're glad to have you to stay. The nominations committee term is for 1 year, but that too is certainly renewable. Directors at large terms run for 2 years, and the number of directors at large can be up to 4. Next slide. If we do have someone to come in as position in the president and first vice president, we will probably keep our current configuration, which you'll see here on the left. We always have an option as co-president, and would be glad to entertain that. And we seek to fill up to 4 more director positions as allowed by bylaws. If, however, we don't have someone in the president or vice president position, we're thinking about a possible leadership option. This has been okayed by state, so we don't have a problem there. And since we'll be working with 2 fewer positions that will still be open, we may have to think about what we're doing and how much we can do with a reduced board. One of the things we'll do is prioritize everything we do, and with your help in helping us decide, we will decide what we may have to cut temporarily or possibly cut permanently. Next slide. Leadership succession is always an interesting concept, because ideally you want to always have newer people coming in and filling open positions and sort of moving up in the board. One of the things we've talked about is having 1 or 2 of the director at large positions being absolutely new to the board, never served on it, just to get your feet wet, to understand what we're doing and how to do it. Always want seasoned members also to come in, because you have our history, you know what we've done in the past, you know what's worked, and you may know of ideas that we thought about, but it wasn't feasible at the time, but it may be feasible now. So we need your help, whether you have served on the board or not, or whether you've served on the board and are ready to help us out again. Next slide. Now, here's what we need from you. Our next board meeting is a week from tomorrow. And what we need from you is for you to notify Ann Carvin of your interest to serve on the board or on an action team or as a coordinator, either now, next year, or in the future. And this is her email address. Just drop her an email saying, I'm putting my hand up, and if you decide which position you'd like to go for, that's great. If you don't, then she will get back to you, and the nominating committee will get back to you, and we'll figure it out. As you're thinking about possible changes to the configuration of the board, whether you think it's a good idea, a bad idea, you have new ideas, different ideas, send them to me, and I will get back to you, and the board will get back to you, and we will greatly appreciate what you're doing. Next slide. I want to, again, thank you all for coming. I'm going to turn the meeting over to Ann Carvin, who is the head of the nominating committee, who will have a few words for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sue. And thanks all for attending today and your interest in the league to, just shown by attending this. I'm so impressed with our local accomplishments. That's what has got me to join and has kept me somewhat involved over the years, more and less. I'm impressed by our local accomplishments and also the strength of the state league and the national league. We're part of a very strong organization with an extensive history. We have more competition than ever. I think that, that along with COVID is, we're feeling that. I get competition from other organizations that have similar interests. I get emails, several emails a day to join this or to contribute to that. And what I ask myself is, and I think what we're asking you is, why not be a more active participant in a local organization that is making such a difference? What has always impressed me about the league is that we study the issues, we take positions based on that study, and then we implement action based on our positions. And it is a very strong process. But also, by participating in a local organization, you have the benefit of establishing the social connections. And hopefully we will be able to meet in person more as we go forward this year and the following year. I think that has really been a challenge, and we've done remarkably well. Thank goodness for technology. So I want to thank you. I do invite you all to contact me with your interest on how you can participate, and we will work together and figure it all out. Thank you. Oh, also, Randy Clegg is on the nominating committee, and Sue Marsh is the representative from the board. So the three of us will be working and speaking with you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ann. That was great. And so this is the time that we now would use for Q&A. And I said at the beginning of the meeting, please put your questions in the chat, and there's nothing in the chat. So, so if you have questions, you can unmute yourselves and ask away. We'll try and keep this somewhat orderly, but you can ask away. And it's either questions or comments or suggestions that you might have. Okay, so one of the questions that we had, I think everyone can probably see this, is how would a leadership team work? And I mean, Sue, you can jump in on this as well. I think that is something that we have not fully explored yet. And part of the reason that we need to spend some time thinking about it is we kind of view ourselves as a leadership team right now. The board very much works as a team, with each member of the board having certain areas of responsibility. And I think what happens when it's a leadership team, we have certain job descriptions right now that exist for the existing roles. And if we don't have those roles filled, then what we're going to have to do is no longer kind of go by the job description and by title what responsibilities someone has. Instead, we're going to have to look at kind of like everyone's job description. And then, as Sue alluded, we're going to have to be able to identify, well, with this smaller team, not functioning along job title roles, what responsibilities do we need to collectively share, and how are we going to get them done, and eliminating things that, frankly, we don't see a lot of fat in here. So it's not like there's a lot of things that obviously can go, but with a smaller team, they are going to have to be prioritized, and some are going to have to go. Did you want to add anything to that, Sue?
No, I think you covered it quite well. Thank you.
Okay, a follow-up question to that, what I just said was what would we cut first? We have not spent any time talking about that. We were really looking to this meeting to see if we could get some insight from the membership and also some people who might be willing to step forward before we started to look at what's going to go. So that will be a focused, Sue mentioned that we have a board meeting next week. And it will be the primary focus of that board meeting is going to be the results of this meeting and where we think we need to have to go next.
I mean, the reason I ask that is because I'm thinking if people knew what we were going to have to stop doing, somebody might step up to the plate and say, you know, that's really important to me. That's something I would be willing to take on rather than seeing the league lose that altogether. And that's why I was asking.
Yes, I see. Yeah. So yes, I think that you're right. I think that's a good question. And I think you're right. We would have to consider that.
I just like to say that I don't think we would cut anything and then inform everybody this has been cut. You know, it would be a discussion.
Yes.
Something like a meeting like this, and you know, this is what we have talked about. This is how we prioritized it. This is what we think we can do, and then get feedback from you. And before anything was cut.
Yeah, I think that's right. A question that came in, very good one, was around where are the job descriptions for the various positions? And I think the easiest way for us to make those available to people is if you, so I'm going to speak for the nominating committee, but I think Anne or Randy or Sue, you should correct me if I'm wrong. No one should think that if they reach out to a member of the nominating committee, that it's like you got sucked into the vortex and there's no way to get out. Okay. So if you are just even curious, if you start the conversation with the nominating committee by saying, I am not volunteering, but I'm interested in what does it entail to be the treasurer, right? Or what is being the vote 411 coordinator? What does that really mean? They will not suck you in, okay? You're not handcuffed. You're just expressing some interest and curiosity. And we welcome that because it could be that you might know someone and you're reaching out on their behalf and you just want to see it for yourself before you approach someone else with the idea that maybe this would be a good fit for them. So the easiest way for us to make the job descriptions available to you is for you to contact the nominating committee and they can share it with you. So that would be the best way, I think, to do that. Did I overspeak nominating committee?
No, they're actually, we're in the process of collecting the job descriptions. There are some that aren't absolutely at our fingertips because the positions haven't been filled. But we should have that pulled together in the next week or two. I want to remind people that they can nominate someone else. You know, if you're shy about stepping up and holding up your hand, others can nominate you. Surprise.
With your permission, yeah, with your permission, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, another question was, would most of the positions be one-year commitments? No, I don't know. Joanne, can you flip us back to, wait, I'll tell you what number it is. It's, I think it's 6. Yeah. Can you flip us back to slide 6 for just a minute? Maybe not. Okay. That's okay. We don't have to do that. Oh, here we go. Okay, so as you can see on here, at least on the positions on the right-hand side, it shows you the terms. If you are brought in this position, then for instance, the president or co-presidents, it would be viewed as a one-year term, 22 to 23. But you can see the treasurer is nominally a 2-year position. And the directors, it says here 2-year position. So it's kind of a mixed bag, and we can make that clear as someone might become more interested. Yes, Joanne's pointing out to me that I missed a question in the chat. So one of the questions in the chat was, would the board consider having a vote 411 coordinator for Brunswick County and New Hanover County to reduce the workload given the number of communities in Brunswick County? Someone who knows more about the vote 411 coordinator job needs to answer that. I don't think I'm in a position to give that a good answer.
Barbara Burrell, can you answer that?
Barb, you're on mute.
Actually, Ted was the coordinator. Ted's on.
I'll just say one thing. I was supposed to get more information and get organized. You know, what would be involved in being leadership? You know, what kind of skills do you have to have? And Chris has put together some material on that. I've been remiss in following up on it, but today at 4:30, there is a state vote 411 meeting, and I'm planning to attend that and to, as best I can, try to come up with something that will be more specific about our 411 team and lead and what it means to be a leader. And if we want to split it into 2 counties, what that might look like. But Ted might be able to say that more too about specifically being a 411 coordinator.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I think that would work. Yeah, the information in the database, it's as I recall, it's pretty easy to sort it by county. So I think, yes, that would be quite workable.
Let me also just say that the state has a lot of materials about promoting 411 once we get it up and running, and it's time to, you know, tell people about the candidates, that there's a lot of material there that we can pull from.
Barbara, I want to say that the technical work, at least for me, is not overwhelming. It's something I'd probably take on if I thought it was going to bite the dust otherwise. But the harder work comes in the marketing, not only getting the candidates to comply and fill out their forms, but informing the public and getting the signs up. That takes more people. So that would be, if somebody wanted to participate in 411 and they didn't want to sit behind a computer, there's many other jobs that can be done, from phone calls to road signs to printing and distributing materials.
Right, and I just got all the, from Clarice, all the fearless voter, not signs, but data that we did in 2020.
Slides.
Slides, yes. So I've got all those, can share them with, I'm going to share them with the Brunswick County Voter Services team and with anybody else, just so you can see something that's been done in the past, one element of disseminating all that information and getting people involved. That's more than 411, that's voting in general, but it's also related to vote 411 and getting people to look up the candidates and find out what's going on.
Yeah, and I think that's really good information, Barb, and illustrative. I know that Catherine Hedgepeth couldn't attend today's meeting, but she's stepped into our New Hanover County Voter Services chairperson role. And I know that she and Barb both committed to addressing the points that you made, Mary Ellen, in terms of promoting 411 and making it visible to everyone. You're right, there's 2 pieces. There's the technical piece, which is a role that we need to have filled. And then there is kind of like, once all of that information is there and available and accessible, people need to know about it. Otherwise, it doesn't really have any use. And so Catherine and Barb have kind of committed to, yes, we will take on a little bit more of that role, as Barb just described, to try and get the word out about that. Thank you, Barb, for answering those questions. I appreciate that. Another question that came in was, are we reaching out to recruit younger members and more diverse members? Both of these are untapped communities for membership and new leaders. For example, we should be duplicating this meeting in the evening or on a weekend so that working members can attend. And yes, we have been talking about that primarily most recently, but it also has come up even in the recognition of all the work that Marla has done this year to bring students. And we actually have some students on this call today. And I think probably most of us recognize that that's tough for students. I mean, if their class schedule precludes, if they have a class at 11 o'clock, they're not able to participate in an all members meeting like this. So we do recognize that issue, and that also will be part of our discussions moving forward in terms of not only how do we bring improve member diversity, not just working members or student members, but all aspects of member diversity. And then how do we actually meet their needs, right? They joined us for a reason, and we want to make sure that we know what that is and how do we align with meeting their interests. Let's see. I'm just scanning the chat real fast to see if there's any other questions. Oh, are the board meetings available for members to listen via Zoom or muted phone? So we haven't done that. What we have done is we publish the minutes and they make them available to anybody, not just members, but any member of the public. And you can get them on our website. So right now, that's the way that we have made board proceedings available for people. And we do Zoom the meetings right now. And so we can make them, we can discuss that and see. I don't think anyone have any initial reservations. Sue?
I think the board has always been open to non-board members. I mean, you're welcome to come. So if we're doing it by Zoom, you would be welcome to come in by Zoom. We would love for you to be interested and come to the meetings.
Right. So, and if I think the calendar, I'll double check this, but I'm pretty sure our League of Women Voters calendar is available on our website. So you would be able to see when the board meetings are. We might not have the Zoom link on there, but if you expressed an interest, we could send that to anybody who wants to be able to do that.
That is correct, just to
Okay.
confirm, yes.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. If anyone thinks that I am intentionally not taking their question, please just either speak up or you can resend it in the chat. Joanne,
There
you're
was a
looking-
question about job descriptions and whether they're available. So we may just want to address that to the rest of the group.
Yes, so I think I had said that if you are interested in a job description, the easiest way for us to do that is for you to contact someone on the nominating committee, and they will, with no pressure attached, share those with you. There was a comment from Jana that she has some job description documentation from a couple years ago, and I wasn't ignoring that, Jana, but I think that we have done some updating work. So if you want to send them, you can, but I know that at the beginning of our 2021 year, one of the things we did was go through a lot of older job descriptions and make some changes. Carol, you had some comments you wanted to make? Are you unmuted?
Carol, you're on mute.
Yep.
And before Carol talks, I just want to say very quickly, can the nominating committee members please put their contact information in the chat in case anybody wants to reach out to them? Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to go off in a little different vein. As a board member off and on for many years, I found that there are many really excellent side benefits for serving on the board that people may or may not have thought about. I have made many strong friendships. When you work with people on projects and in meetings and planning, it's really wonderful, the strong relationships that develop over the years or year, however long you're in. And to me, that's really important. I see these lists of people here and it makes me happy to see everybody. And since I've been off the board, I feel, you know, I feel like I'm not with it as much because there's so many new people that I haven't had a chance to get to meet. And part of that's COVID too. I think the fact that the president's job is now 1 year is the best way to go. I did it for 2 years and it became a bit of a strain. 1 year is manageable. And with a good board working with you, it's very doable. I've personally got a great sense of accomplishment from all that we did in, I don't know, the 8 to 10 years I've been on the board in one capacity or another. And that's something that sticks with me, and I think sticks with people if you work hard on something and you remember it. And it's just a really good feeling. Like I joined this wonderful organization and it was really worthwhile. It was very full of accomplishments that we can be proud of. I also am aware that through the league, I was able to meet a lot of local people, local politicians, local leaders, so that when I get out and around, I see more people that I might not have known otherwise. And to me, that's just been a real enjoyable part of it. As far as time requirements, which I think a lot of people might be thinking about, I think the board has options to fashion their time requirements as they are able to deal with them. It's very easy. I thought it was easy to get caught up in all these wonderful, worthwhile projects and studies and whatever that could be done. But it's important, of course, to realize, okay, I have this much time to give, and let's be realistic about this, and pick what is most important and what is most important to us and to our league. So if you're on a board and you get to the point of thinking, okay, I'm committed, I can't do anymore, let's just pull back a little bit in this particular area. And a board can just decide to do that. So you have control over more control over your time than you might think. Those are my thoughts. I just wanted to say them.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think that actually helps for people to hear from someone who has been on the board and been involved with the league for as long as you have. So I appreciate that.
Leslie,
Yes.
may I say simply that I agree with Carol totally, that it has been, working on the board is really a ball most of the time. Of course, there are times when you go, but the fact of the matter is, it's really, for the most part, a very interesting time. And I would like to just second everything that Carol said. I'm so glad she said it better than I could have.
Okay, thanks, Clarice. I think that one thing that those of you on the call who do have this experience and maybe saying, you know, I continue to support the league, and you do, and we all know that, and how to respond to this call without necessarily stepping back into a position that you've already held, is if you could let the nominating committee know if you would be willing to be a mentor to someone who might be relatively new and a little uncertain about what they want to get involved. They recognize the need. Obviously, the current members of the board would do everything they could to help orient someone and provide the necessary training and background. And it is a very easygoing bunch. So, but still, it might help for them to know that there's someone who's been through this before, who's willing to be a phone call away, you know, phone a friend, that kind of thing. So if you think you could do that, fill that kind of role, I think that might be beneficial to the nominating committee to be able to talk to people who express some interest but are just uncertain that someone else would be in their corner. And not everyone can do that either. So we understand if you're not able to even do that right now, that's fine. I'm going to ask if there are any other questions, either that someone wants to unmute and ask, or if you want to put in the chat, and I'm just going to ask others who are monitoring the chat to make sure that I didn't overlook anything. Okay, it sounds like no. Before we finish this up, I do want to say that some of you may have noticed that we had a string of emails coming out to let people know about this meeting. And we had to kind of fine tune our approach as the initial request for your attendance to this meeting. And then as we kind of refined what we wanted to accomplish. And one of the things we wanted to clarify was that the idea for this meeting did not come from Marla and Bridget as our co-presidents. And in fact, the entire board with the nominating committee thought it through and decided, no, we feel like we're looking far enough out on the horizon. So I'm hoping that many of you have realized is this is not an immediate concern. Things are going to keep moving forward, and we have a plan for doing that if it becomes necessary, if we can't fill all the standard positions that we normally do. But I think you probably also can tell that if we do have to enact that plan and move forward, it means that even further down the road, so further on the horizon, there are going to be other difficult decisions to make. So we wanted to bring this in front of the entire board, wanted to bring this in front of everyone so that the full membership, or as many as possible, will be able to kind of understand what we're seeing and offer insight and ideas to what we might want to do next. So I just wanted you to know that it was more than just our co-presidents who identified this. In fact, it wasn't real. That isn't where it came from. It came from the nominating committee and the whole board. So just to wrap it up, there will be kind of a summary of this meeting that will go out in email to all members, because there were lots of people that may have had an interest, but because of work commitments or other things going on, were not able to attend. So we will give a summary of that. And I think the recording will be available if people want to actually watch the whole thing again. And I think that's it. Does anyone think of anything else that we wanted to be able to add before we finish up?
I was just going to mention that we could also include a link to the recording in the summary that we send out.
Yeah, okay, yeah. That's good. Okay, with that.
One other thing, I don't know if we're definitely doing this, but I think there was a little conversation about possibly inviting people to watch the recording at night and being present to answer questions.
That was in the pre-meeting, but yes.
Right, so that's a possibility also that we're
That's also a possibility, right? Well, when we send out the summary to all members, whether they attended or not, we'll offer that as something that people can respond and indicate they have an interest in that.
Leslie,
Yes.
can I ask one quick question? Is there any reason we couldn't send the job descriptions out to everybody?
There's no reason other than it's a lot of them, and I don't know that people who don't have any interest at all want to get that kind of email, but
Well, maybe everybody on this call.
We could just provide a link to a place
would
where
be-
they can look the job descriptions if they want to. Once we compile them, we can
That-
put them
that
in a
would be-
shared location and provide a link.
Perfect, much simpler than everybody trying to contact the nominating committee and asking about specific positions. Thank
well,
you.
let me ask the nominating committee. Is that what you guys want to do, or do you want to know people who have an interest?
Well, I just want to say that there are some leagues who have their job descriptions permanently posted on their site. So
Okay.
people can go to them anytime. And I see no reason why we shouldn't do that as well.
I'll be happy to do that.
Great.
Okay, then yes, then Beth, the answer is yes. We can,
But not in the next couple of days. We're still compiling.
yeah, but I think, yeah, so Beth, what we'll probably, if we're able to do that, once that's available, then we can just send an email out, let everyone know with the link, right? Here's where you can go. And that addresses your point, right, Beth?
Yes, very much so.
Okay, good. That's great. Thanks for bringing that up. Anything else? Okay, thank you again for your time and your interest and your contributions to this meeting. And stay tuned, I think, and we'll keep you informed on what happens next.